everyone. Welcome to our CX Community of Practice for May. I'm Candace Thorson, Managing Editor, and we're going to focus on common AI use cases in communities. So while we're waiting for everybody to join, we have an icebreaker for you today. So when you join, if you want to put in the chat where you're coming from, as well as answer the questions. So we're interested in knowing what was a highlight of this weekend for you. It could be big or small. So maybe you did something really cool for Mother's Day, or maybe you finally cleaned out the sock drawer that's been spilling over for 4 years. It doesn't matter. Anything that you think is really was somehow a highlight for you would be great. Um, I know for me, I like I said before, I live in New York, about 2 hours or so northeast of the city. And Saturday was horrible. It literally rained for like 12, 13 hours straight. But yesterday was beautiful, like bright sun, warm, whatever. So I went to one of my favorite gardening centers. I bought tons of vegetables to plant, annuals, whatever, and got to plant it. And it was just really nice. And if all the string beans actually produce the way they're supposed to, I'm going to be eating string beans every other day. Which, I like string beans, but not that much. Um, so let's see. Oh, you went on a 3 mile walk before. Wow, that's industrial. That's impressive. I don't think I've ever went on a 3 mile walk. A bush concert. Oh, planted flowers in the garden. I love that. Yeah. Oh, graduated from university. That's great. That's awesome. Moto camping. Is moto camping when you're actually in a like a vehicle? I don't mean to sound dumb, but um quick one night trip. That sounds great. Motorcycle. Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, I think it was a nice weekend to start doing things. Um, yeah, it's really cool. A 3 mile walk though, I've never gone. I love walking, but relaxing in Chicago. I like Chicago. It's a great city to walk around and it's a great place to be. Took a hike. Yeah, there's a theme developing. Um, we'll let everybody just join for, say, like 30 more seconds or so, and then we can talk about our topic, get into our topic today. So, and I'll introduce our speaker, who I always enjoy talking to. So, no pressure. Anyway, just to get into the topic today. So, we every month we talk about we look at various ways to better engage communities, to give people the services they need and deserve, and to do it in a more operationally efficient way. And one of the most significant ways to do that is using artificial intelligence. But, AI means a lot of different things, and the technology is constantly evolving. So today we're going to talk about what AI can deliver the most value for your agency, and then we're going to walk through some real world use cases that kind of put everything in context. So you kind of talk about some of the ways that this can actually play out for you. We have with us Luke Norris. He is Vice President of Platform Strategy and Digital Transformation at Granicus, where he helps government at all levels use digital technology to operate more efficiently and get the services constituents need the most. He also has more than 16 years experience in government relations and business development, and that includes Fortune 500s as well as GovTech startups. And among his many other achievements and volunteer service opportunities, he was a federally appointed housing commissioner for a HUD-funded housing authority. So thank you so much for joining me, Luke. I always enjoy talking to you, and I really look forward to this conversation. And I just
Me
saw in
too,
the
yeah.
chat, not to interrupt you, but a manatee while snorkeling in the
I know.
ocean.
I saw
I
Sheila.
guarantee I will never have that experience.
I go to
Um,
Florida every summer and it's like the biggest hope. So, Sheila, awesome. You'll have to send photos if you got any.
That is awesome. Um, okay, so I apologize for not putting up the slide. I always forgot. So just to begin, what CX challenges do agencies face and like what are some of the pain points they struggle with?
Yeah, wow. Good question. I think we see that there are customer experience issues kind of across the spectrum. There's customer experience issues as basic as residents just being able to easily find information on government websites, portals, newsletters, all of those types of things. Certainly, that creates challenges, especially when they can't find the answer to some of the questions that they do have. When those call centers are only open, maybe 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. So that's certainly just a big issue where people have just come to expect that government only works during business hours and not really around the clock. Certainly, we see it in much more kind of unique and detailed views. Oftentimes when people are starting the process of applying for a permit or trying to complete a public records request or trying to, apply for Medicare or other types of integrated public benefits. So often there's questions around whether or not I'm eligible. What do I need to be eligible? What do I need to be prepared and to start some of those types of interactions? And while those seem like, they may be basic questions, a lot of those are very hyper specific to the types of interaction where I live, whether I'm in a residential or a commercial district, or whether I have a historic overlay, whatever those types of things might be. And so we see that that presents some really common UX challenges in being able to actually help people understand how to do business with government and ultimately to make sure that they interact with government in a way that is accurate. So, a big, big CX challenge that we've seen is so many applications today don't have a lot of logic built in to being able to really triage or identify if someone has completed the application clearly and accurately, or if there's ambiguity in it, because often that ambiguity shows up in the third, fourth, fifth, or the 20th step of the process, which sometimes makes people just feel like they were, had wasted a bunch of time. So that's another really common use case. And then you just think about some of the other kind of, common things. I think, all of us as residents now have started to think of, commercial experiences are multi-channel. They're available via SMS. They're available via WhatsApp, especially for some of our kind of marginalized communities that maybe, don't have access to some of those kind of connected devices. So all of those create new opportunities also to think about how do you transform the way that you provide that government information. And without it, some of those people have a lot of really difficult times. So I would just say, there's a variety of kind of CX challenges. It seems that they're driven in some ways by various channels, but also the way that people expect to receive and ultimately be able to find and understand and do things with government. And if those are not really well built out or not leveraging AI, sometimes some of those CX challenges can surface much later in the process and create a lot of frustration for folks.
Yeah. And some of the tools that agencies put out, which are great, but they still, like, my mother is older and my father, he had hearing issues, he had had strokes and such. And just because some digital tools are great for one segment, they may not be great for older people or people who are, have some kind of disability or something in some way. So you have to find a balance too, because you have to hit a bunch of different segments.
Totally.
So
Yeah, and what we always say is, right, you have to meet residents where they are, and the reality is they want to be kind of served in different ways. And, I think obviously for those of you that have been practitioners for dozens of years, we've all been waiting to see something actually drive significant channel shift in terms of helping people stop calling the 311 or stop calling City Hall. And the reality is a lot of people haven't stopped doing that in some ways because, again,
mm,
the hyper specific access to information I need, or because of language proficiency, or because of my digital literacy, I may not feel as confident typing and asking some of these detailed questions as I want. So that phone still becomes, and now what's really great is through the power of AI voice, we know that that is absolutely something now that you can use to transform that experience on that specific channel.
yeah. And sometimes, like, if sometimes people want to hear a sympathetic voice, and you can be more sympathetic sometimes listening to a chatbot who's trying to help you than listening to somebody who's not, depending on what kind of, everybody has their good days and their bad days and their bad moment, I mean, but people sometimes just want to hear a sympathetic voice. And
Totally.
that's really more, and get the information they need, but
Yeah.
that's what they really need
Well, and we
emotionally.
know that government staff want to be able to provide that high level quality of service, right? We know that so many different call centers. Oftentimes, their, call center operators have to take something between 15 and 20 different calls per hour. So you have somewhere between 3 and 4 minutes to handle calls. And when Mrs. Anderson, foster care mom that's trying to find access to benefits or school programs or whatever the case might be, she needs more help. And we know that call center operators and frontline staff want to be able to provide that level of help to those folks. They don't want to keep answering the questions around how do I pay online? What time does City Hall open? Some of the mundane questions that they get. So that's what's also kind of cool. I think AI is helping bring into focus where there's a little bit of a match, right? Residents expect new modern experiences, and government staff want new and more efficient ways to be able to manage those services so that they really can provide that empathetic, human-centered support to the people that need it the most.
Yeah. Now we actually just kind of moved into the second question, but how can AI address some of the pain points? Just to kind of expand on what you've been talking about. What are some of the tools that can reduce the friction that's out
Yeah,
there?
it's really good. It's a great question. So I think maybe the first thing I would just try to think about is, as we go through maybe this conversation, one of the things I always try to help people think about is think about AI as augmented intelligence. Don't think about it as artificial intelligence, right? At the end of the day, there is nothing artificial about your government laws and policies and content, and certainly nothing artificial about your processes, even though you may not like them, right? But it's not really artificial. But instead, when we think about augmented intelligence, I think it gives us a chance to start to think about some of the use cases in the way that AI can really help not only provide residents better access to information and new channels by which they can receive government services, but I also think what it does is it's about how do you think about augmenting the intelligence that your government staff have when they come in contact with a resident, when they're processing an application. So let's kind of think about that as maybe the frame of how we think about that. So, certainly, digital agents, chatbots, if you will, are a great way that governments are able to provide a frontline response to really be able to answer 24/7, 7 days a week, people's questions in 75 plus languages for very specific, but also pretty routine questions, right? But sometimes that's not enough. As I mentioned, people will have more in-depth use cases. So oftentimes they do call, and that's where that voice AI comes in. And that's a place where we know that a lot of those government staff, again, want the ability to be able to provide higher levels of access to information. And so through connected integrations to various data sets, those voice AI now really can provide much more in-depth, accurate information from where's my trash day versus helping me look up something about my property tax or actually understand something about my account. So voice AI is a big, big part of that. We're also seeing, though, across kind of these workflows or these customer journeys that you can see a variety of use cases where AI can come in and help do some of the intake triage capabilities, right? Is the application completed? Is it completed accuracy? Is there any potential flags in there that you can catch before you initiate a workflow? So that's a great place where you can see that go on. Of course, we see a lot of great use cases where it's also about helping government staff now be able to provide information as a part of that customer experience in human plain language back to residents. So whether it's a public records request and maybe Candace asked for a public record, but you don't really understand it, but you want to be able to kind of display empathy and try to understand if this is what they're really asking for, Gen AI can now help fuel some of those responses back to Candace. Similarly, from a lot of permits and licensing angles, oftentimes you'll have to give a letter of why you declined or why you accepted something, and it sometimes feels pretty jargony or very government speak and kind of heavy on legalese. That's another place where generative AI can now actually help make those letters much, much clearer to folks. And then, of course, we see a bunch of use cases on the generative AI case as it pertains to public meetings. So public meetings obviously are a part of all of our lives. We want it in terms of, good governance and good government to be able to hold people accountable and understand how decisions are made. But oftentimes being able to read an actual agenda or read minutes coming out of an agenda can be really confusing. And so now we've seen use cases where, government staff can help research across a variety of meetings, or certainly reporters and certainly really engaged residents may want to say, how many times has, cannabis been discussed in my community? When's the last time that there was a cannabis permit that was approved by the city? Which council members have voted yes or no on cannabis types of activities? So that's a really another powerful use case. But I think we're also now shifting to what we kind of see as the era of agentic AI, which is all about really thinking about how can agents now start to help be a core part of these actual workflows. And what I think is really interesting, and as we think again kind of about augmented intelligence, the reality is our government customers, all of you, have been buying software for a number of years, right? You used to buy software, put it on a server, and store it in your basement. About 10 or so years ago, you started buying software, you're licensing it on shared servers in the cloud. And now, really, this agentic kind of environment is all about using agents that are software that can now actually help do really manual and redundant parts of workflows that maybe humans just don't need to touch, so that again they can provide much higher use case and value to some core government use cases. So that's a little bit of what we're seeing, and I think some of the key ways that governments are thinking about AI across that spectrum.
When you mentioned minutes and everything, it reminded me, in my town, there's a big initiative, I'm going to say initiative, but there's a big thing that's going on that I'll just say that the entire town is up in arms about and basically doesn't like. But it's been going on for years, and people on the town zoning board and stuff, they've known about it, and some miscellaneous other people, but it's gotten to the point where like the broader community now realizes it and is very invested, almost when it's too late. So to be able to use AI to go siphon through all these years worth of minutes that nobody has really paid attention to be truthful, to get a better sense of what the history of this project is, so you get a better handle on it, would be enormously helpful because you could better understand it, and you could do prompts and queries and stuff to be able to siphon out the information you need, so that you're not because minutes, they talk about a lot of things in meetings, not just the one project you care about. That would be that would be vastly helpful.
Yep,
Is
and be
that the
able to
kind
do it
of
in a
part of
way
the
that
thing you're talking about?
yeah, totally. And being able to position in a way that's much more kind of user friendly, right? So we know that most government content, especially things like public meetings minutes, are often written in a postgraduate level, right? And so as
Yeah.
we think about most residents really read at a fifth or sixth grade reading level, it is now about how do you use that prompt logic and that generative AI to really leverage human-centered content principles to be able to communicate to people in very plain language so that it's super easy to understand, but also help them understand things across a variety of years, a variety of initiatives, or even see how people's opinions maybe have changed over time to really identify if the actual citizen feedback and citizen, desires are actually being heard by council members. So absolutely, I think that's a huge new opportunity.
And plus, people are just tired. They're doing it like after work on weekends when this occurs to them, and this is just not their mind is not wrapped around reading all these minutes for however many years. But you've been talking about some, use cases and stuff. Are there any other use cases, anything else that you'd like to point out, any other examples or something, or maybe case studies that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think really with the power of, kind of AI technology and really thinking about, working hand in hand with staff to be able to understand what are some of the common challenges, where is there, a variety of errors or gaps in your processes, which parts of those processes just take too much time or are too manual. All of those really highlight a variety of ways where new agentic layers and agentic technology, or AI agents, if you will, can really help solve some of those common challenges. So we've seen those even being things like, hey, help me understand how best to write an email so that I get the most people in my community to click through on it, or what email taglines actually open at higher rates than others. So those are great use cases where, again, really what you're doing is you're leveraging all of the massive pattern recognition through all of the data that you've already been building and just augmenting the way that you think about using that data to become even more higher performing. So one of the things we actually help a lot of folks with is sometimes we know that it's hard just to kind of know where to get started, right? And so one of the things that we'll oftentimes do are a variety of kind of workshops where we can do kind of a lunch and learn and help actually illuminate some of the actual use cases that maybe would be more applicable to really specific challenges that an individual government has. And oftentimes that's about starting small, or sometimes it's starting with something that's really painful, and then being able to just show the value of how that AI solution can help create some of those opportunities. So just another way that we may be able to help some folks.
That's a great example when you mentioned subject lines, like for emails, because that's a really simple thing. I don't want to say it's low lift or anything, but that's a really important thing that makes a difference that, like that where AI certainly can be helpful. And you government wants people to read their emails.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
it's that is and like you've said, like sometimes government speak is government speak, so you don't really realize what's going to draw people's attention the way it should. So that's a
Totally.
great opportunity. Yeah. So what best practices will help agencies use AI tools effectively?
Yeah.
Say I know I need to get started, but I'm just a little unsure. And like what pitfalls should they avoid?
Yeah, maybe let's start with the pitfalls and then I'll share a few ideas on some of the kind of best practices. So I think one of the pitfalls that I see a lot of folks just struggling with is we don't have an AI policy, right? Or we don't have an AI
Hmm.
use policy. And I think a lot of folks that kind of just has stalled some of their interests. So one of the first things I would just say is keep operating as if you're just procuring software or buying software, right? You're just using AI technology as a new layer of software, which means you have IT policies, you have data policies, and you have privacy policies. So go talk to your IT folks about that and just don't fall into the pitfall of waiting to get started, right? Find those kind of low left, or low lift use cases that don't maybe have as much of the data or privacy considerations. Use the public data as best you first can and just simply get started, right? So I think that's the easiest way to overcome some of the pitfalls. I think in terms of some of the best practice, one of the things that I would always kind of encourage folks to think about is it's never too early to get started on thinking about how to improve your content, right? So at the end of the day, your content on your website or your content in your PDFs, or the content that you have in your, kind of training manuals for your staff to help provide answers to people's questions. All of that's content that you can use to basically inform the way that digital agents provide really accurate and important information to your residents. And so getting started on making sure that that information's up to date, it's not redundant, all of those are hugely valuable things that you can start now to make sure that you're ready whenever you start to use generative AI digital agents. So that's one. The second best practice I always say is to make sure that you are investing in people, process, and technology equally. And so I think there's so much of a rush right now and excitement in some ways to think about AI and go procure AI for the sake of AI. But just like any other piece of technology, if you put it on top of a broken process, it's not going to drive the desired outcomes that you want. So, what that really means is how are you actually stepping back and thinking about is the process as simple as it can be? There's a really amazing set of AI technologies out there that can actually help you do phone interviews to get a really clear sense of what is your actual process. We know that so many governments don't have those processes well documented. And so you'll talk to people and sometimes they think it's 5 or 7 steps. But when you talk to, 10 or 20 different people, you realize it's 30, 40 different steps and there's a lot of redundancy. So getting really clear about how to improve those processes is just going to be something that's really going to save you time. And you can use AI to even help you with that. And then the last piece on like the people and the culture side, I think the other thing is, again, just shift the narrative, right? The other best practice I've seen is don't make it feel scary. Don't let people think that it's about to come and take their job. Help them think about what are the places in your workflow that you need help, that you have to do too many manual things, that you see too many errors, and really allow folks to think about the augmented intelligence that AI can create to ultimately uncover the places where it can create the most value. So I think those are three really important best practices. And then the fourth, again, is just go ahead and get started and start so you don't fall into that pitfall of just waiting too long.
That's such a good point because, as far as workforce, because a lot of people genuinely are concerned about it. They feel uncomfortable using artificial intelligence. Sometimes, in their personal lives too. So to make the transition too is difficult. So it's a hurdle for some people, and they are concerned about, what it means for their roles and such. So that it is important to not forget about
Yeah.
them and to just focus on technology.
I think, certainly if you're in a leadership position or an IT position, one of the things I always say is you should probably for the next 2 years be spending dollar for dollar. Every dollar that you invest in AI technology, you should be spending the same amount of money on culture or people behaviors, right? We need to help people think about when is it safe? How do I use it? What are the use cases that I should apply it to? You're going to probably have to think about how do you start to train people to think about critical steps of a process in different ways. You really want to help support the organization with that mindset shift so that, again, they don't approach it from a sense of fear, but they do approach it from a sense of optimism.
Yeah. Now this may be like one of the hardest questions I asked but today, but if you had to distill everything about what we talked about and just the topic in general to just say like two, three takeaways, what would you like to leave everybody with today?
Yeah, tough one. Let's start with this. AI is about more than just technology, and there's nothing artificial about AI when it's applied against your content, your data, your laws, and your policies. And the most important thing that you can do is to focus on it as augmented intelligence and really positioning how it can create value for your staff and save them time. The second, I think, would certainly be look for use cases, talk to actual staff and understand where they have a lot of redundancy, a lot of manual tasks, and engage them in workshops to start to think about how could AI help there? What would the use case be? What could the process be? And how could we make it simpler? So I think that's a big, big part of it. Because then again, you can make the right decisions about the right types of AI to ultimately unlock. And then I think the third one would just be, seek partners that understand that technology is moving fast and seek partners probably that are really going to help you think about how to make investments in people, process, and technology equally. Because I do think that, a big part of this is we're all learning. It's changing every single day, every single hour in some cases. And I think that's going to require a new level of flexibility and a new level of partnership orientation that really it's about choosing the partner that's going to help you succeed long term and short term and really help you take failure off the table by making sure that you're not just investing in tech for the sake of technology. So those would probably be the three things. And if I had to say a fourth one, it's obviously keep following GovLoop because you guys I know are just doing a lot of work to share some best practices with a variety of folks. We learn from some of the amazing content you all put out, and I think that's what we all have to do is just approach this with a new sense of curiosity and constantly be learning from one another.
Thank you so much. And I promise we didn't tell him to say that, but and I love that. Don't take failure off the table. Did I get that right? Uh,
Indeed. Yep.
I like that very much. Thank you so much for joining me, Luke. I really appreciate it. As always, everybody, just so you know that our next CXCOP is going to be on Monday, June 15th. It's also going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to talk about how to create a social media plan because social media is certainly a critical part of government communications. If you want to be a COP speaker, just let me know. Drop me an email. We also have a monthly newsletter, so check that out for lots of helpful resources. We have a LinkedIn group, which you can, connect to in the newsletter. So feel free to join that, get your colleagues to share your ideas, etc. And if you have an idea for a COP topic for us to talk about, then to just email me and we'll follow up with it. But thanks again, Luke, and for everybody for joining us. And on behalf of GovLoop, we just want to say thanks for everything you do every day. Have a good day, everybody.
See you
Bye
soon.
bye.
Bye bye.